So welcome back, podcast fans, to a bonus episode of Podworld that we call My Favourite Podcast. I'm David Marr Roberts, or DMR. If you've listened to the regular show before, you will know that Podworld is all about helping you discover great podcasts. And in that show, we usually pick a category, go deep into that and recommend 3 or 4 shows that you should listen to. And we've done history, true crime, we've done comedy and TV and film. It's a great way to get a taste for either a new genre or some shows that you might not have found otherwise. You should really check it out. But in these shorter bonus episodes, we take a very different route to a podcast recommendation. We chat with an author, a musician, or content creator and ask them about their favorite podcasts. And for this episode, I'm so happy to welcome an award-winning filmmaker, actor, and writer from Ohio. Welcome to Podworld, Jo Roueiheb.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
You're very, very welcome. So tell us a bit about yourself, Jo. Who are you? I know it's a big question.
Yeah. Well, I've been working most of my life to figure that out. And this pandemic has made me realize I have a lot more questions to answer. But yeah, I'm a filmmaker, comedian, improviser, originally from Ohio. I did a lot of work in New York. I performed at the Upright Citizens Brigade. And I have a pilot out called I Adore Dolores. It's about a 63-year-old divorced woman who uses her divorce settlement money to buy the apartment building that her estranged clown stepdaughter lives in. And it's a lot like I Love Lucy meets Strangers with Candy meets an acid trip.
Oh, wow.
But, you know, due to COVID, I've moved back to Ohio and teamed up with some wonderful people, Matt Pallotta and LeJon Woods, and we are hosts of the Going There podcast. Absolutely,
which is how we got connected, because we've been talking about that podcast and featuring it on Podworld. So let's explore that. What's your relationship with podcasts and podcasting? You know, obviously as a co-host, but also in a broader way in terms of maybe your influences from other podcasts.
Yeah. Well, the wonderful thing about podcasts is that there are so many of them. Everyone has one. And that's not a bad thing. That's a great thing. And because you're not beholden to a certain time frame, like radio or anything on air, you can really take a deeper dive into subjects. And that's what I love about it. I love working out to podcasts, actually. It feels like I'm getting 2 things done at the same time, learning and getting buff.
That's a t-shirt, surely.
Yeah.
I really find that with podcasts, it's something so intimate and one-on-one as a relationship. So it kind of lends itself to all of those things that we do by ourselves, like working out or doing chores or gardening or going for a walk or whatever. And it works really well, as radio does. But the beauty of podcasts is how niche and specialist these things can be. And some of the best podcasts are not necessarily the broadest in terms of appeal, but they're actually super well researched and well delivered, but they're narrow,
right?
Narrow and deep, I guess.
Yeah, that's exactly why I really love this podcast. What's This Tao All About?
You're listening to What's This Tao All About? A lighthearted look at Taoism featuring Dr. Carl Totten and Todd Perry. Carl is the founder of the Taoist Institute in North Hollywood, California. Todd Perry knows a little about Taoism and is mainly here because he owns a few microphones. Now, let's learn. What's this Tao all about?
And it's about Taoism and trying to explain to, you know, just the regular person, not the monk on the top of a mountain, what is Taoism. And I've recently gotten into it, and it's just been so wonderful and so rewarding for me to just, you know, learn these little nuggets about Taoism and Wu Wei and, you know, just how to be.
How to be.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So how did you discover that one?
I think I was looking up. So I'm into this this thing called the I Ching, or the I Ching. I think people also say it, which is similar to tarot. But for people who don't know, it's you use coins or yarrow sticks and you toss them, and there's yang and yin energy, and yin moving to yang, yang moving to yin. And it's
Okay.
It's really interesting because it's like very broad yet nuanced at the same time. So you can toss the coins and you can get a hexagram that is describing your situation that you didn't even think would be possible. And it's part divination, part just oracle, like way to live, guidance, which I think 2020 living in United States has certainly shown a lot of people that we could use some guidance.
Yes.
So anyway, I was looking up just some podcasts, what could be helpful for that, since it's an esoteric subject. And I didn't really find much, but I did find this podcast, What's This Tao All About? And I think the essence of the I Ching is that I like is Taoism. So it really did speak to me. And they're just two normal people in California who like to talk about it. Todd Perry, I think he's a radio host and used to write for Upworthy, which is a popular website. And then Dr. Carl Totten, who is the founder of the Taoist Institute in California. And I'm a new fan to this podcast, so.
That's great. So it's a new discovery.
Yeah, this is like a new discovery for me.
So there's way more to go on that journey for you as well, which is always good.
Exactly, yeah.
So is that your favorite, or do you have another podcast which is more your all-time favorite that you want to share with us? Yeah,
I was thinking about this, and I love that podcast, and it was between talking about that one or Don Fanelli's The Need to Fail. I don't know if you're familiar, but Don Fanelli is a comedian, improviser, and I know him through the Upright Citizens Brigade.
Oh, this thing that I've been putting pressure on myself to do and thinking it was like the gold standard and all I ever wanted. Well, now it's been taken away from me and I can't have it. So now what?
I wanted to work on a television show so badly as a writer, and I had gotten so close, and I really liked the people that were involved, and I liked the content, and then it was over.
A lot of comedians in my community also have podcasts, so I think that's also how I've been turned on to many of them. But his particular take on them is he talks to mostly famous comedians or working comedians and actors and writers, some musicians, and they talk about a time in their life where they felt like a failure or a certain instance that they failed greatly and how important it was for them in their learning and growing process.
Okay.
Which is also why I like that it's kind of Taoist if you think about it.
Yeah, absolutely. They're very connected, your two favorites.
Yeah.
I can see. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, I mean, it's entertaining and it's helpful to hear from people that I admire, that they also had moments where they felt like they failed, and then how empowering it was for them in the long run, like when they decided to zoom out. Yeah,
well, we could definitely zoom out of Zoom right now, as there's a little bit too much Zoom going on. But it's interesting though, because for you guys in the comedy circuit or as actors, obviously 2020 has been pretty horrific, and it's not really a question of failing, but more like a question of you guys not being able to do what you usually do. So trying to find the positives and reinvent. At the time of recording this, we just released our episode on comedy podcasts, and we found a lot of new podcasts were created in 2020 because there's a lot of talent sitting at home waiting for the pandemic to pass, right? So it's interesting to look at the positives and not see it as failure, but find how to try to get the audience in different ways and maybe learn new things,
Yeah, there's this Lao Tzu story where a man, he loses his horse and the town is like, this is so terrible. I'm so sorry. He's like, well, we'll see. And then the next day, that horse comes back with 7 more horses. The town's like, wow, good. Oh my goodness, this is such good news. Like, we'll see. And then the next day, his son is trying to break in one of the horses and the horse bucks him off and he breaks his leg. And, now he can't take care of the family. This is so terrible. We'll see. The next day, the army comes to draft people and they can't take his son because his leg is broken. We'll see if that's good. Hope his son's nice.
I love that story.
Yeah.
So those are your two favorites, but tell me a little bit more about your podcast that you co-host with Matt Pallotta and LeJon Woods.
Yeah, it's called Going There. Taboo topics are back on the table, and we like to discuss things that, you know, really have been keeping our country and I believe our society divided. And we want to normalize being able to talk about certain things, because there's a lot of issues that when you refuse to talk about things, it's much easier to manipulate the truth and for the bad people to control things. We have an episode coming out tomorrow on media literacy, which we do think is so important. We try to tackle all of these subjects with, you know, objectivity and comedy as well, because, you know, they are taboo and it is hard to talk about certain things, but it's important to infuse some comedy in the situation, because really it's not as big of a deal as we all think this is. We just need to talk about all of these things we're scared to talk about. It's been really rewarding. Usually this is when I throw it to Matt for him to plug the actual episodes, but you know, there's some drinking involved. We sometimes, you know, we say things that many people would be nervous to say at the dinner table.
Yeah, but that's the whole point of the show, right? The problem we've got to, I mean, you've had it in America and I think we've had it here in the UK too, is that we've just become way more divided because of polarization, and, you know, fairly complex subjects have become simplified and you're either for or against, and you don't really listen to what the conversation is about or what the argument is about.
Yeah, we're living in our own worlds, and I think it's very easy to like cull the herd in your little social media bubble to make sure that everything that you're hearing is like within your echo chamber. And then suddenly, if you hear something that's outside of it, they're an enemy. And you can have different opinions, and that doesn't mean that you have to also hate each other or that that person is bad. It just means that why don't we talk about this to come to some common ground, or to at least understand both sides?
Yeah, absolutely. And we've lost that ability to reason. I mean, maybe not as humans, but the way that social media works and some of the mainstream media works is to pit those two things against each other rather than go, actually, those two arguments kind of make sense and it doesn't mean I hate you.
Yeah, I mean, World War II is what got the U.S. out of the Depression. So it's like war and anger is fuel. It helps people. It helps the economy. And it also helps ratings on TV. So it makes sense that, you know, the people who are putting out this information want us to be angry. So then we'll keep looking at our screens and, you know, keep watching TV. But as human beings, we should probably take a step back and see what's going on.
Yeah, it's just there to make us keep on clicking on stuff. It's very, very frustrating. So how can our listeners find out more about your podcast and about you and what you're up to?
Sure. So for the Going There podcast, you can check us out on Apple, iTunes, Stitcher, wherever podcasts are played. We're on Facebook, Instagram, The Going There Podcast. Oh, yeah. And also thegoingtherepodcast.com. And for me, you can check me out on my website, callmejo.com, or check out my pilot, I Adore Dolores.
Yes.
And you can find that on YouTube.
Brilliant. So thank you for your time and for sharing your favorite podcasts with us. It was really great meeting you, and I wish you all the best, obviously, with the podcast and a much better 2021 than 2020.
Yes. Thank you. And same. Great meeting you. Thanks for having me.
Podworld is produced and edited by Louise Blaine and myself, DMR. Design is by Dylan Channon. Our researcher is LMR Roberts, and the music was composed by Dan Phillipson. Stay in touch with us via our website, podworld.fm, or follow us on Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook at podworld.